All right, the second part of practice 3.2, part B, right? We're going to continue looking at that cardiorespiratory endurance and thinking about its stroke volume. So I left off with here, right? We look at the VO2 max, and it's really looking at the efficiency or the capacity of your heart and your lungs to work. So it's usually there's a specific machine, right, they hook somebody up to that captures all the carbon dioxide that's exhaled, and it can measure how much is inhaled, like how much oxygen is inhaled, and then how much is exhaled, and they can find the percent that is actually used. So what uses that oxygen, right? It's the lungs, it's the heart, it's the blood vessels, it's the mitochondria, it's the elasticity of the heart and the blood vessels. And really, there's many factors, especially when we exercise, that affect those things. So when we exercise, we release different chemicals and enzymes throughout the body. And we'll talk more about this when we talk about metabolism and the endocrine response. So you don't necessarily have to know those now, but just to kind of prep us for those things, right? That different hormones can influence how our body functions. We already talked about how to calculate our target heart rate zone using the Carbonin method. So I think I said the age-adjusted maximal heart rate or the age-predicted maximal heart rate. So again, revisit this, especially if that's something that didn't really click. But you want to calculate what your target heart rate zone is and what your athlete's target heart rate zones are. And again, the point of that is we want to spend most of our practice session in that target heart rate zone to stimulate those changes. So it may not look linear like this. It may look more interval-like, unless it's kind of a slow, steady state. But if we look, right, if we're looking at movement, if it's anaerobic without oxygen, the mitochondria has a limited amount of oxygen available to it. And it can tap into the glycogen, but it really needs oxygen to fuel that chemical reaction to make ATP. So with one glycogen molecule, it can create about 4 ATP. And really the duration, right, you can get high intensity, so that's a benefit, but the duration isn't very long. So but you get about 30 seconds of near maximal effort. So as, right, there's an inverse relationship, as the intensity drops, the time can increase. So if the activity requires more than like 30 seconds of sustained activity, we really need oxygen to be part of that equation. So really when we get kind of in that 60 to 75% of our target heart rate zone, more than 8 metabolic equivalents, we need oxygen. So it's kind of in that moderate to upper moderate range of intensity. Our body's going to primarily use our glycogen for energy, plus that oxygen. So now with that combination, we can make about 32 to 34 ATP of energy. If activity goes beyond 20 to 30 minutes of sustained activity, again, the intensity has to drop even more. So we're thinking about like distance running now. Once we get more than about, I'm going to move this here, more than about 30 minutes of continual activity, we're using a concoction of glycogen, and now we're tapping into some triglycerides or fat for energy, plus the oxygen. So really this is low moderate to low intensity activity. So you can really have a conversation when doing this. So again, that's with oxygen with cardiorespiratory endurance. And we need a properly functioning heart, lungs, blood vessels, and blood to make that run efficiently.